Week 0 was so much fun. How about we do it again? Week 1, KU Wagner preview on today's episode of Locked on Jayhawks.
You are Locked on Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on? Derek Johnson here. This is Locked on Jayhawks. Thanks for making it your first listen every day. And thank you to everydayers catching each and every episode of the show, including some of our bonus content like we had last night, whether it's on YouTube or anywhere that you get your audio side of things with the podcast. On today's edition of Locked on Jayhawks, we're breaking down Wagner. We're going to get into our top storylines for the game. We got our full scouting report of the Seahawks. We got our matchups of the game, full preview of Kansas Wagner. We'll have the keys to the game, players to watch, and more on tomorrow's episode as well. So make sure you subscribe to the show again, anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page. So let's just get right into it. So Wagner comes into this one 0-0. Kansas obviously comes into this game 1-0 on the season after playing in week 0, which love me the week 0s. By the way, if you saw some of the scheduling stuff, KU is going to be playing Hawaii in week 0 in 2028. Locked on Network, please fly me out there. Anyway, when you look at this Kansas Wagner game, this is typically your week 0 game or your first game of the season, the game against the FCS opponent. It's your tune-up opportunity. It's the opportunity to get young guys playing time and to get other guys reps and to keep your starters healthy before the long season ahead. I kind of like that it's your second game of the season. I mean, the SEC does it, they're like 8th or 9th game of the season, right? And that's helpful for them. So I kind of like this for KU, that they get this after the Fresno State game. I like it that they get it before the Missouri game, to where, hopefully, ideally, you're not having to show too much on film, and some of the fun stuff you do show on film, hopefully are things that you want to show on film that they have to over prepare for, and you have like a counter for. Like, that's kind of the idea. But some of the biggest storylines, I think, coming into this one, to me, I mean, obviously you have to be able to win big. The spread in this game is like 46 points. So you were expected to win big. You should win big. You still don't want to take anything for granted. From a team perspective, from what Lance Leipold is telling the team, he's got to tell them stay focused, one play at a time. All the coach speak stuff that is true from the team perspective. I don't have to worry about that. I'm not part of the team. I am talking as we are in fans. And so from that standpoint, I am sitting there going, yeah, okay, go blow this team out. And then when you're blowing them out, I want to see what some of the young guys can do. I want to see what some of the backups can do, because this is an opportunity to get a look into the future. What players are ahead of who that are going to set up them to be key contributors or starters in the future when some of the guys in front of them graduate or transfer away or go pro. What do some of these backup battles look like? You hear so-and-so is doing well in practice and is developing, but it's one thing to hear it. It's another thing to see it on the field when you get an opportunity to. And so that notion, yes, I want to see, a lot of the young players. I want to see a lot of how these guys perform. I want to see more of running back 3, and I want to see more of, what some of these young guys who have high potential and can do if they get into game time. And I think chief amongst that has to be the backup quarterback spot, right? Again, ideally you're getting up big enough in this game, not just that you can put in the backups, but that you can put in the backups for a good amount of time, right? If you're only up, 17-0 at halftime, starter's going to have to keep playing deep into the second half. The most ideal situation is you're up so much that you can put your backups in to start the second half. And then you can even put your third strings in the fourth quarter, third and fourth strings. That would be the most ideal situation for Kansas, that they're able to get some of those guys reps. And so that battle of QB2, that's one of the biggest storylines for me, because assuming all does go well and all goes to plan, you get to a situation where, okay, we're going to have some time for Cole Ballard to play, and we're going to have some time for Isaiah Marshall to play. And it felt like you got a little taste of Isaiah Marshall's speed. You didn't get to see much from Cole Ballard. I want to see more from both guys and some actual pass plays. It doesn't have to be a bunch of them, but I want to see a couple throws on a real route tree or something from both of those guys. I think that would be entertaining and interesting to kind of take note of. So that's something I'm really interested in, because it's twofold. It's one, the idea if Jalen Daniels gets hurt on any play, one of those guys has to come in. And then it's the twofold of, hey, Jalen's going to be gone after 2025. Who's going to be the starter in 2026, right? Whoever that guy is, right now Cole Ballard clearly has the edge for that. Whoever the number 2 quarterback is, though, once we get to week 12 on the depth chart, that's going to be the guy with the real big advantage going into spring ball that's getting those first team reps. I'm also interested in, I think one of the big storylines of this one, is this going to be just a continuation of the second half playbook we saw against Fresno State? It was vanilla for KU, and deservedly so. You don't want to have to put too much on tape. I mean, you're dominating that game. You got the Missouri game in week 3. You got Big 12 play after that. You don't want to give up too much. And again, you want to practice certain things in game situations. You want to put certain things on film that is going to make them have to prepare longer. You're going to want to put certain things on film that you have a counter to, that you're showing them so that they hopefully study it and approach it this way, and then you have the perfect counter to that, right? There are certain things you want to do with that, but you don't want to overdo it, and you want to keep things vanilla. And the idea here, I think, in this game should be, Wagner's trying to get their first FBS win. This is a 4-8 team from a season ago. You're 46-point favorites. You should be able to just run your base plays, the plays that everybody on your schedule knows that you're going to be running and is going to prepare for you to run, but that you should still be able to make your bread and butter. And that, it's the plays that, you run against any team and they've worked on it all week, but you still might be able to get a 4-yard gain out of it. Those plays, you should be able to get 6, 7, 8 yards in a game like this, right? Your halfback power, your halfback dive, your wide zone, whatever KU running plays are their bread and butter for this team. You should be able to have success with those. You should be able to have success with your screen passes and some of your more basic passing concepts, right? I'll be interested to see how that goes, but especially for the defensive side of the ball, a lot of multiple different fronts and different things that DK McDonald threw out on the defensive side against Fresno State. Curious to see if it's more vanilla for both sides of the ball in this one against Wagner. I'm also curious from the crowd perspective. I mean, is it going to build off week 0? Is it going to be a sellout again? A couple things that make this one a little more challenging are that it's a Friday night, 6:30, people going to be coming off work. How does that affect things? Is the energy? I mean, it was awesome being there in week 0. Does that carry over? What about the students? How are they going to be? Is it going to match the intensity, or because you're playing an FCS opponent on Friday night, is it going to be, still, close to full and still energetic, but not quite the same? It'll be interesting to see what that is for KU in this one. Some news from the week as well. Dean Miller, it sounds like he's going to be back for KU. At least that was the update from Lance Leipold earlier this week. It's, we heard that in the previous week's presser that like DJ Graham and Bryson Canty were progressing nicely. And I don't think Graham played and Canty only played 4 snaps. So who knows? But you also have the argument of, should you play Dean Miller in this game? And that kind of is like you could make the argument both ways. If Dean Miller's battling an injury coming back, do you want to waste the bullets, so to speak? Do you want to fire them away? Do you want to waste his reps in an FCS game? Or would you rather just have him fresh for the Missouri game? The flip side, though, that is, does he need to get some real live reps? Does he need to get some game reps to shake the rust off so he's not rusty when you really need him in the Missouri game, right? I can kind of see both sides of the coin there. But some of the other injuries for KU sounds like they're more questionable, or sounds like guys like Jason Gilliam aren't going to play, So it'll be interesting to see who suits up, who plays in this one for Kansas. And it doesn't just go for the young guys that I mentioned earlier that I want to see, but it goes for some of the guys who are kind of banged up, like Bryson Canty. I want to see what he can do. Can he get a bigger snap load in this game? And can he, working back from the injury, maybe get some more reps with the ones, and then maybe get some reps with the 2s, again, assuming all goes well for KU here, that he's able to ramp things back up. Because if Bryson Canty gets to a point where, he's fully healthy and in the swing of things, you could definitely make an argument he'll be one of KU's 3 best receivers on the team. So I think a lot of interesting storylines and people who are going to be playing, or are they not, in this FCS game for KU against Wagner. All right, let's get to our opponent's scouting report of the Seahawks, and then we'll finish up with matchups of the game. This is Locked on Jayhawks. Today's episode of Locked on Jayhawks is brought to you by Upside. Are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play Store right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code. It's football in all caps, football. You can remember that, and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You can make it up to $300 a year just from buying the gas that you already needed. Your car's not going to stop needing refueled. At first, I thought it was too good to be true, but it is totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card, or Amazon, many other brands. Don't let this offer drive by. Download the free Upside app using my limited time promo code football for a limited time 25-cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code football. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. Today's episode is also brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects. With their industry-leading customer service, always has your blind side covered. Need parts that are, fast, and you got a project coming up that you want to get done soon? Well, Supply House has next day delivery. Talk about a real game changer. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, low prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service with Supply House. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Locked On Jayhawks, Kansas Wagner preview. Don't forget to check out Locked On College Football for your second listen every day. We'll have a Big 12 squad coming up later today on your Thursday. We also had a bonus episode yesterday talking Colt Rosario after we talked a little Trey White. So a little basketball going on, a little football going on. Catch it all right here with Locked On Jayhawks. Okay, so Wagner comes into this season off a 4-8 season from a year before. They did have an FBS game. They lost to Florida Atlantic 41-10. That was not a very good Florida Atlantic team. Florida Atlantic was 3-9 a season ago, although I think they randomly almost beat Michigan State last year. But point being, Florida Atlantic was not a very good FBS team, and they dominated Wagner. So that's why the spread is as big as it is for Kansas. The coach is Tom Masella. He is gone just 9-38 at Wagner, so I'd imagine this is a big year for him. For his career, 53-104 as a head coach. And the predicted finish, or I guess the media poll selection, whatever. I think it's actually a coach's poll. They were picked 5th of the 8 teams in the NEC coming into the year. So kind of a middle of the pack NEC team, which is not one of the, better conferences necessarily in the FCS. That is their highest preseason pick since 2020. So this is one of the better teams of recent year, but ESPN SB Plus a little down on them too. That has them ranked 114th in the FCS. There are 129 teams. So again, Kansas go out and dominate this game. It has them as the 126th best offense, so bad on offense, 82nd best defense, so a little bit of a pulse there on the defensive side of the ball. When you look at some interesting position groups and stuff for them, they did have 10 players picked to the Phil Steele all NEC teams, which is third most in the league. So they actually do have some interesting player talent. That group featured 1 offensive lineman, 1 running back, 1 wide receiver, 1 defensive lineman, 1 linebacker, and 3 defensive backs. It also included their kicker and their punter. So I think you can kind of see why the defense is the strength of the team, right? You get 5 players on defense, plus having the punter. That helps for the defense too. And I think you can also see the secondary is definitely a strength of the team. Again, 3 players who are defensive backs were picked to one of the all NEC teams by Phil Steele, which goes like 4 deep. So when you look at the quarterback for Wagner, I think that'll be an interesting storyline coming into this for them. Who's going to be the starter? At time of recording right now, I have not seen anything come out for Wagner. I'm constantly looking for like Wagner football preview on Google or whatever, and there's just nothing out there. I don't even think they have like a beat writer online. It's just like, there's nothing there. You can't find any information there, and I haven't seen them like release a depth chart or something. I don't know if it's different rules for the FCS or what has to go on there, but regardless, fun fact, Wagner has 12 quarterbacks on the roster. That is insane to have that many players on. I get it. Like, I think Kansas probably has a couple walk-ons. I don't know. They probably have 6 or 7 themselves. That's half the number of what they have. And it hasn't been a super fruitful position for Wagner. They haven't had a quarterback, an individual quarterback, throw for 2,000 yards in a single season since 2016. So this has not typically been, an offensive or quarterback powerhouse, but they do have some interesting pieces here. So last year's starter, Jake Cady, didn't throw for a ton of yards, had a decent touchdown to interception ratio. He's gone. player who is second on the team in pass attempts, Damian Mazel. He's now listed as a wide receiver, so I think fair to say he's not going to be the quarterback. To me, just based on scouring the quarterback roster, I don't know. Maybe it ends up being one of the other 12 quarterbacks they have. They're like a freshman coming in from IMG Academy, which is usually a good school. So I don't know. Maybe it's one of those guys. But to me, based on what I looked at, I was thinking it's going to be one of two guys. Jack Stevens, he's a sophomore. He had the third most attempts last year at 9. So that would tell you he was probably the third string a season ago. Maybe that means he's the starter now with those two guys, either changing position or moving on. And then the other one, and this might be the guy that I'm expecting, he's a transfer addition, Jordan Barton. He was a stud at Riverside City College in 2023, which is a junior college in California. Then he transferred to Sacramento State, which has been a really productive. I don't know how they've done the last 2 years. I just know they were really good in the FCS, and then their coach took the Stanford job. But he was the backup at Sacramento State for a season, and then he obviously comes to Wagner now. When you look at Stevens, the returning sophomore, he 6 of 9, 68 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. He was 4 for 5 over the middle of the field. Also 6 carries for 7 yards, but not much to go on there. When you look at Barton's case, 2 for 4 for 11 yards at Sac State, 31 rushing yards. So again, not a big sample size to go on there. You have a bigger sample size if you go off his JUCO stuff, where he was really good. 4,000 passing yards almost in his final year there, 72% with 35 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, and he had 306 rushing yards and 7 scores. So I'm kind of thinking he's going to be the starter, and if he is, I kind of think based on the production he had at the JUCO level, I think he could be an upgrade over what they've recently had at the quarterback position. So he's kind of an interesting player there, but we'll wait and see what they do at the quarterback position. 5 happy stats, 5 sad stats for our key stats here. Going back to that with Barton, he guided Riverside Junior College to the California 3C 2A title with a 24-21 win over College of Mateo. So not only really productive, but led his team to wins. So, maybe he ends up being a diamond in the rough, and maybe Wagner ends up being a lot better than you might think because they have a stud quarterback. So that would be kind of interesting. Other happy stat, Wagner had 2 one-score losses. They had another loss by 10. That was really a 3-point game with 6 minutes to go. So you look at them as being 4-8 a season ago. They easily could have won 5, 6, even 7 games from last season. They were also 62nd in the FCS, again, 129 teams, so about average there, in run block grade on Pro Football Focus. So the offensive line did a solid job, at least a decent job in run blocking. According to Pro Football Focus as well, they were 32nd in coverage grade, which led them, this is all one stat, to allowing just 13 passing touchdowns compared to 13 interceptions. So overall, this was a really good pass defense last year in the FCS, and we mentioned earlier 3 DBs on that Phil Steele all-conference team in the preseason. They also had the second most forced fumbles in the NEC last season. Seems like something that they kind of emphasize. For Kansas, you got to hold on to the football. I mean, Daniel Highshaw has 7 fumbles in his career. I don't think he fumbled last year, though, so this seems like something that he tightened up. You hope that's the case continuing into this one. Kansas can't give away, a couple fumbles. That's how you kind of give them life and let them into the game. 5 sad stats for Wagner, 110th last year in pass block grade on Pro Football Focus. So they really struggled pass blocking, and that's against an FCS schedule. Kansas should be able to feast here, especially if Dean Miller comes back. 127th in the country in Pro Football Focus in tackling grade. So they were second to last in the FCS in tackling grade. That is licking your chops if you're the Kansas skill players. Again, not the teams are different. We know there's so much movement nowadays in college football, so it is a little different, but it's all we have to go on, and there at least are some things you can pull out here. They also converted just under 36% of their third downs last season, so they were not very successful there. They only averaged 3.7 yards per carry running the football last season as an offense, so that's not a great number there. And then the last sad stat for Wagner, special teams was a problem for them a season ago. They only attempted 4 field goals, which maybe, on one hand, maybe it just tells you they're the most aggressive team in the world. Here's what it tells me, because there's this other stat. They missed 3 PATs last year. The reason they probably only attempted 4 field goals, their kicker probably wasn't very good, and they couldn't afford to take him because they thought they were going to miss him. They also averaged just 41 yards per punt, 37 net yards per punt. The 37 net yards per punt would have ranked as the 15th best punter in the Big 12. So special teams is an area that I look at and say, I think Kansas has an advantage here, to say the least. All right, that sets us all up for our next segment. Matchups of the game that could decide I mean, I think you would hope that Kansas wins the game, but do they cover the spread? We'll get to that next on Locked On Jayhawks. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by Game Time, where you can get tickets for the game between Kansas and Wagner. College football's back, baby. I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself sometimes. Endless queues, hidden fees, price jumps at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. You can toggle off the include fees. I don't know why you would do that on Game Time, but right now, as of time of recording, I'm looking, and shoot, man, you can sit section 117. This is row 15, right behind the end zone. Get to view the video board. $34. You can sit where like the K is in the logo, row 9, for $27. You want to sit on the old side of the stadium, humble yourself a little after you sat on the new side the week before. Get a really good seat, row 5, section 21 for $53. Those are all on Game Time, and you can find your own tickets too, and you can see what they look like. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. Again, you can check out Locked On College Football for your second listen every day. You can also check out Locked On College Basketball if you want to stay in tune with that for your third listen every day. All right, matchups of the game for this one. First down, Jimmy's and Joe's over the X's and the O's. Something we talked about earlier. You shouldn't need your more complicated players, nor do you want to put them out on tape, nor do you want to burn them in this game. If it ends up being closer than you expect, maybe you have to burn a couple. You hope that's not the case. You hope that you're able to run your basic plays, your bread and butter plays, a few things here or there, and be able to dominate with those. That's what you should do. You're the more talented team. Go show it. And when you look at it, Florida Atlantic in that FBS game last year, Florida Atlantic had 315 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. Again, that was not a very good Florida Atlantic team. Kansas should be able to dominate with the Jimmys and Joes more than the X's and O's in this game. Second down, no special team blunders. I just talked about how they weren't the best special teams from a season ago, but that is how you let a team like this hang longer than they should, right? Kansas goes down on the first drive of the game, you get stopped to a field goal, you drop a pass or something on third down, and then you have like a 40-yard field goal, gets blocked, returns for a touchdown. Now all of a sudden you're sitting there going, we let them into the game, we gave them hope at the early part of the game. Just don't allow for something like that to happen. Now, the good news for KU isn't just that Wagner struggled on special teams last year. It's that Kansas looked pretty sharp on special teams in week 0 of the season. But yeah, no special teams blunders. Third down, tackling improvement. Now, or maybe even sustained tackling. I don't know. This might be something I'm more interested to see moving forward, because when you're talking about Wagner again, from Wagner's still, I don't mean this whole thing to come across disrespectful. Wagner is still like the football team with a pulse. Like they're an FCS team. Like to get into Wagner and be playing FCS football, that requires a lot of skill. You were probably like one of the best players in your high school area to be able to do that, right? It's just from we're previewing the game from the Kansas perspective. And from the Kansas perspective, Wagner has the probably, least athletic skill players that Kansas will go up against this year. Right. And so from that perspective, you should be able to have a good tackling game, right? Because if you don't tackle well in this game, what are you going to do when you have to play, the best athletes that you're going up against, But Kansas was good in week 0 tackling, which is always kind of a dice roll, because when you look at week 0, sometimes you're not hitting as much in preseason camp. Sometimes it can be a little harder to recalibrate the tackling at the beginning of the season. You need to kind of get back in that flow. Well, Kansas had 8 missed tackles in week 0, which was good for a 16.7% missed tackle rate. So a little under 1 in every 5 tackles they missed. And honestly, I can think of off the top of my head, at least 2 or 3 of those that were on the first drive. After the first drive, that number was probably pretty nails for KU. But overall, that was the number. Last year, 16.7% tackling rate. The only games that would have rated better, though, for KU a season ago were the games against Lindenwood, Illinois, and BYU. They actually had the same numbers against Iowa State and Baylor. So that means actually, the tackling game Kansas had in week 0, which can, again, be a little tougher, would have actually ranked as kind of a middle of the pack to upper end game for KU last year. But in total, Kansas missed 129 tackles last season. That's an average of about 11 missed tackles per game. So you were under that mark in week 0. Can you continue to stay under that mark here in week 1? And I just kind of want to see if they can back it up. What you did last week, can you back it up this week and then make this the best tackling team of the Lance Leipold era and carry that over into the Power 4 portion of the schedule, which starts after this one. Fourth down is pressuring the quarterback. Kansas had 19 pressures in week 0 against Fresno State. They had 5 different players log 2 or more pressures, and 11 different players get at least 1. So it was good pass rush for KU, and they did it in a lot of different ways, and they did that without Dean Miller. But you look at last year, the best games for KU in terms of total pressures, 23 against UNLV, 22 against West Virginia, and 20 against Houston. On the season, 14.6 per game. So the fact they had 19 in week 0 against Fresno, when you didn't have Dean Miller, speaks to some of the depth of the defensive line and some of the multiple different looks that DK McDonald was kind of throwing out there. So in kind of the same vein of like the tackling, I want to see this backed up. Have another good pass rush performance, especially knowing that, again, going back to last year, they were the 127th team of 129 teams in pass blocking grade. So if Dean Miller comes back, go get a sack. I want to see them be able to continue to get pressure. I don't want to see this be an inconsistent thing. Blood in the water, be a shark. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe to the show. We'll be back at you on Friday to talk more about this game, keys to the game for KU, how they win, how they cover, players to watch, all that and more. So make sure to subscribe to the show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page. We'll see you next time with LOJ.